The war of the United States of America and Israel against Iran has taken an unexpected turn that completely, radically changes the situation in the Middle East. American President Donald Trump just a few minutes ago announced that the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has been eliminated. He stated directly and confirmed the information from Israeli intelligence, which had earlier reported that Ali Khamenei was killed. In addition, it is reported that almost the entire top leadership in Iran has also been eliminated. Because along with Khamenei's chief security advisor, the commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the country's defense minister, Khamenei's chief military secretary, the head of Iranian military intelligence, the chairman of the Iranian Organization for Nuclear Weapons Research, and so on, were also killed. There is only one high-ranking official left, and that is Ali Larijani. Larijani, the secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council who survived, is now basically the highest-ranking surviving Iranian official. Donald Trump has already called on the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps to lay down their arms. Moreover, Trump claims that the fighters of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps are allegedly already requesting immunity. But Trump says, join the people, finally clear out the regime and build something reasonable. A normal country, not with a regime, not with a dictatorial authoritarian regime in power. Besides, there is more and more information that really you could say the Khamenei regime is finally leaving, fading into history, if I can put it that way. But in addition, there is also information that the remnants of the regime will still try to gather now. These are 88 supreme clerics who may come together and try to choose a new leader. But it increasingly looks like the operation by the Americans and Israelis was planned in such a way as to eliminate this regime completely and quickly. But Trump, nevertheless, has now cancelled his press conference, but stated that the war, particularly the bombings, will continue for a week or even longer if necessary. And he is calling on the Iranian people to come out and finally take power into their own hands. Since the main dictator who ruled Iran, if I'm not mistaken, for 36 years has been eliminated. Basically, now Iran can enter a completely new era. But at the same time, it's important to understand that today the war against Iran has geographically spread almost throughout the entire Middle East. We see that the United Arab Emirates is under attack, and Saudi Arabia has officially entered the war today on the side of the Americans. And today, Iran has effectively attacked Jordan because it started attacking this country absolutely without justification. Iraq ended up in the epicenter of the shootouts and so on. Let's discuss this topic together. My name is Alexei Pechi. Now let's dive into this topic and discuss what is known at the moment. But before we start this episode, I ask you to please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Please leave a like and write your comment under this episode. This way, as many viewers as possible will be able to see this video on YouTube. It really helps a lot. Also, subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechi News. The link is in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as it comes in. So, at the end of the first day of the US and Israel military operation against Iran, Donald Trump announced that Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was killed as a result of an Israeli strike during a large-scale joint US-Israel military operation. Trump essentially welcomed Khamenei's death in a post on the social network Trust Social, calling him one of the most evil people in history. And he stated that his killing is justice for Americans and other people killed by Iran over the decades. Trump confirmed that American intelligence played a direct role in tracking and pursuing Khamenei, stating that the Ayatollah could not escape the attention of our intelligence and high-tech surveillance systems. Trump warned that the bombings would, quote, continue non-stop throughout the week, or for as long as it takes to achieve what he called the goal of peace throughout the entire Middle East and essentially the whole world. Trump stated that Iranian security forces and members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps are already seeking immunity, reaching out to Americans and saying they are ready to surrender if they are promised non-prosecution. And Trump called on the militants of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps to, quote, peacefully unite with Iranian patriots. But this is actually a hint that earlier today Trump urged the Iranian people to temporarily stay in bomb shelters during the bombing, and then at some point to go out into the streets and take power into their own hands. He says that America, for its part, will do what it can, and it has already done so by essentially removing the top of the Iranian regime, and now it's up to the Iranian people to take full power into their own hands. Besides, I should note why all this is important, because the 86-year-old Khamenei has ruled Iran for more than 36 years, making him one of the longest ruling authoritarian leaders in the world. His death is a huge blow, and it would accelerate its collapse, which, according to American and Israeli officials, is the goal of their operation. And this is no longer a secret, and it wasn't from the very beginning. It wasn't a secret even when Trump, still by US time. At night, in the first hours after the operation against Iran began, he stated that yes, the goal is the total, complete overthrow of the Ayatollah regime in Iran. Khamenei's assassination instantly causes a succession crisis. It may accelerate the regime because of his word. And according to the words of the Iranian leader, it cannot accelerate the regime's collapse. Trump said the first hours of operation in Iran are about overthrowing the Ayatollah's regime in Iran. As a result, 7 high-ranking employees of the Ministry of Defense and Intelligence were killed, and in total, 30 top military and civilian leaders were targeted. Khamenei may accelerate it according to the long-ruling Iranian leader, not the regime. Among them is Berambet Khamenei. Nothing is Hamdosh. This is nothing like civil cantonment castle. That's it. Mohammad Pakpur, Iran's defense minister Aziz Nasirzadeh, chief military secretary to Ali Khamenei, Mohammad Shirazi, head of Iranian military intelligence Saleh Assadi, chairman of the Iranian Organization for Nuclear Weapons Research Hossein Jabal Amilian. Here's an interesting point. Yes, you remember that the Khamenei regime has always claimed that they are not going to create nuclear weapons, that they only have peaceful nuclear energy and are enriching uranium, definitely not for making a nuclear warhead. But in Iran, there was an organization for nuclear weapons research. If you're not planning to make nuclear weapons, why do you need that organization? So, what should we pay attention to in this situation? At the moment, one of the high-ranking officials who survived these attacks by the US and Israel, which are still ongoing, this is Ali Larijani, the Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, former Speaker of Parliament, and one of the closest associates of Ali Khamenei. So, after the death of most of Iran's leadership, Larijani remains the highest-ranking civilian official who is still alive and in power. In his message this Saturday afternoon, ironically, he vowed that Iran would teach Israel and the United States an unforgettable historic lesson. But in my opinion, the exact opposite happened. It remains unclear whether the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps will attempt to seize control of power, or if strikes from the US and Israel will create the much-desired opportunity that both the Prime Minister of Israel and Donald Trump have called for. What is meant is the complete overthrow of the Ayatollah regime in Iran and a total reformatting of power in that country. Israeli officials stated that Israel also struck Khamenei's sons, but according to intelligence reports, they allegedly survived these strikes. Mojtaba Khamenei, one of the supreme leader's sons, has been widely discussed as a possible successor to his father. Here, right here. It should also be noted that in a video address published at night, in the first hours of the Israeli and US attack on Iran, Trump called on the Iranian people to stay in their homes during the bombings, but to rise up and, quote, take control of their government when the bombings end. There's another interesting point here, which is that the exiled former Crown Prince Reza and Pahlavi, the leading opposition leader who organized mass protests against the Ayatollah regime, also called on the Iranian people to take to the streets today. Pahlavi called on the Iranian security forces with the following, quote, "Join the nation and help ensure a stable and safe transition of power. Otherwise, you will sink with the Khamenei ship and his collapsing regime." Here I want to add that most likely the Americans will indeed promote Reza Pahlavi's return. First to Iran, and for him to take power into his own hands. And as you can see, now it's happening simultaneously. Pahlavi and Trump are calling on the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and Iran's security forces essentially to lay down their arms and side with the people, and to start a proper transitional period so that the entire regime steps down. The Islamic Republic would be over. It would cease to exist, and well, probably the monarchy would return, although most likely the monarchy won't work anymore, but a more democratic society would emerge. I'll also add in this episode some information about Ali Khamenei, who has been eliminated. Let's just recap who this person was. Khamenei has held influence since the Iranian Revolution of 1979. At first, he held the position of Minister of Defense. Then he led the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and then in 1981 was elected president. A few months before the elections, there was basically an assassination attempt on him, and after that, one of his arms stopped working. As a result, in 1989, Khamenei became the supreme leader after the death of his predecessor, Ayatollah Khomeini. And according to the US Institute of Peace, Khamenei controls Iran's judicial system, effectively leads the council that vets election candidates, and has the power to veto absolutely all decisions of the parliament. He commands the armed forces, the elite Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and oversees the state media. He also has the right to manage Iran's revenues from some of the largest reserves in the world. Запасов нефти. То есть фактически вся полнота власти была в руках у Хаменеи. Конечно, был президент, парламент. The right to manage Iran's revenues from some of the largest reserves. Стражи исламской революции, который объединял в себе не просто вооруженные силы. Это, по сути, была махина, которая руководила всей страной. Экономикой, образованием, СМИ, военными действиями, абсолютно всем. Ну, то есть, по факту, давайте закрепим, что вся власть была в руках Хаменеи. Хаменеи часто использовал ту самую армию, то есть корпус стражи исламской революции, для подавления инакомыслия в стране. Он часто... The right to manage Iran's revenues obtained from some of the largest... И первый раз в 1999 году он там разогнал митинг студентов, там огромное количество арестов было. Потом он подавлял протесты по поводу спорных президентских выборов 2009 года. Потом были... To manage Iran's revenues. Тогда пытались, кстати, как-то положить конец преследованию женщин и девочек в Иране. Obtained from some of the world's largest reserves. But Khamenei suppressed those protests as well. The latest protests are the ones that began in December 2025 at the end of the year. And then, according to various estimates, the regime completely lost control and killed 32,000 protesters. This doesn't include the wounded and arrested. Khamenei has repeatedly ordered the internet to be shut down, including during recent protests, to disrupt communication and shield his regime from international scrutiny. But at the same time, Khamenei preached resilience and managed to preserve the regime during numerous crises and decades of hostility with the US and Israel. Khamenei, as you remember, made opposition to the Americans such a central point of his foreign policy. Opposition to the US and to Israel as well, excuse me. He constantly supported the so-called axis of resistance in the region, which provides support. Support to terrorists and other puppet groups. And again, let's take Hamas, Hezbollah, the Yemeni Houthis, and several groups in Iraq. These are the proxy forces on the surface that Iran has always supported to destabilize the region. In addition, Khamenei recently warned Donald Trump that if the Americans start a war this time, it will be a regional scale war. And indeed, today he tried to carry out his threats. and it affected Jordan, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Bahrain as well. Strikes began in Iraq, and so on and so forth. Also, Khamenei said, and I quote, "If anyone shows greed and wants to attack or cause harm, the Iranian people will strike them hard." But at the same time, suddenly footage appeared on the internet when it became known that Khamenei had died. The very same Iranian people did not strike the Americans, but are celebrating, and you can hear people rejoicing in the streets. Shouts, such exclamations of joy because Khamenei has been eliminated. And finally, I'll add another interesting point concerning Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi, who was simulating negotiations on reaching a nuclear agreement. So today he suddenly declares, quote, "We do not understand the reasons for the US attack on Iran. We do not understand, perhaps the American administration was dragged into this. Here's what I know for sure. Iran will punish those who kill our children. Our hostility is with the American people, who are being deceived once again." I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. If you found this episode interesting and useful, you can support our YouTube channel financially with your donation or a paid subscription using the links and details in the description of this video. That's all for now. Take care. Goodbye, everyone.